Hi there, I'm Spira, and today I am going to talk to you about some of the modalities that I use to help me heal my trauma. Hi there, I'm Spira. Welcome to my channel. So originally I made this channel for my dog. She's lovely, and I actually left some of the videos on the channel because she passed away, and for me it's a nice way to remember her. And most of them are private, but I do have a few that are public. And also she had a few videos that became a little bit popular, so I left them up there because people still like to see them and they enjoy them. But then, as time went on, I decided to start focusing a little bit on my yoga practice and my yoga teaching. And I started to upload these videos when I was out of work after having a breakdown. Now, I am a trauma survivor, and my specific diagnosis is complex trauma or complex PTSD. And it's a little bit different than regular PTSD in that PTSD is usually a singular event. And the effects are very similar, actually. They're almost the same with a few minor differences, but complex PTSD is actually a series of traumatic events. And in many cases, they also call it, for some people, they call it developmental trauma as well. And what can happen is if your trauma started in your childhood, that's what happened in my case, you become even more sensitive and more susceptible. So then all of a sudden, all these traumas start piling up. And in my case, I actually did really well for a long time. I made it to 48, I think. And that year I knew something was going to happen. I knew everything was going to blow up somehow. I just felt so on edge, and I didn't know what to do about it. Now, I had been diagnosed a few years prior, actually a lot more than a few, maybe 10, a little more than 10 years prior. I was diagnosed with PTSD, depression, anxiety, and ADHD, and all that stuff. Now, all these years later, we know that depression and anxiety, in this case, not in every case, in this case, the depression and the anxiety were actually just symptoms of the complex PTSD. And also, I didn't know that there were any treatments for it. And now I know better. Now that time has gone by and trauma has been studied a lot more, there are actual treatments that work. Now, the foundation of these treatments is to utilize what we call a bottom-up effect or bottom-up treatment. Now, in psychology, a top-down treatment would be to go to a psychologist first. You're starting with the mind and then maybe working with the body. But for trauma, for both types, for PTSD and complex trauma, now we know through lots of studies and lots of data and lots of evidence-based studies, thank goodness, that the bottom-up approach is best. And what that means is working through the body first to start releasing some of the trauma and the effects of the trauma, and then working with a therapist. I would say 99% of people probably don't do it that way. Most people go to a therapist first because they think that that's what they need. And I'm not ever going to say don't go to a therapist. I think therapy is amazing, and I think everybody should go, and I still go. Now, in my particular situation, the result of that was that for many years, I went to therapy thinking that I was doing the right thing, and I was. Like I said, I've never say that it wasn't. But all of the things that I was learning in therapy, and I also read a lot of books, self-help books and everything, just to get more knowledge because I'm a teacher, so I have to know everything, and and I have to know everything about it, especially because it's me, right? So what I learned was a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy and things like that, but I couldn't seem to put much of it into practice. I understood it conceptually, but because my brain wasn't functioning efficiently or at 100%. It just wasn't catching. And the reason my brain wasn't functioning well is because one of the effects of trauma is that it does compromise the prefrontal cortex, which is in the front of your head, and it's the part of the brain that's responsible for executive functioning, decision making, and things like that, planning for the future, etc. But what I didn't know was my nervous system was so out of whack that that part of my brain wasn't really functioning, and I was purely in survival mode, and I was living just from emotions. I was reactive, and yoga helped me a lot, I will say, because my yoga practice I started probably about 20 years ago, a little more than 20 years ago. I wasn't always consistent. I didn't really get serious about yoga until right before I decided to start teaching. Yoga helped a lot, and also when I was a child, I used to sing a lot. And this is a side note, but singing actually stimulates the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve, not Las Vegas, it's VAGUS. The vagus nerve helps to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I'm not going to get into the big explanation of what the parasympathetic nervous system is versus the sympathetic nervous system, because that you can find in a lot of other places. And unless I get 100 people, asking me to explain, it would take too long right now for this video. However, you can research it, Google it, and also use YouTube. There are a lot of professionals who might be able to explain it better than I could, although I think I do okay. Anyway, so I was singing a lot as a child, and I really think because I was constantly regulating my nervous system and resetting it, I think that actually helped me from going downhill too fast, if that makes any sense. And also, we're all born with our own levels of resilience, and that resilience can also be encouraged and supported in other ways. So for some kids, for example, if they don't have any support system, if they don't have other family members or teachers or anyone sort of backing them up and encouraging them, then their resilience might not be so great. I still think we have a certain amount that we're sort of born with. And this is evidenced in, look at any families that have struggled with trauma. You can take siblings from any family, and mine is an example. I have 2 siblings, so we have 3 kids in my family. Well, adults now, we're all grown-ups. And it affected us all very differently, and we all turned out very differently. So, it's a combination. It's a combination of the person's sensitivity to it and their resilience level and the different types of traumas and all that. In the end, the result is the same. It's a damaged nervous system. And the only way to get out of that is to work on the nervous system. I also want to add that some of the effects of having a damaged nervous system there are other symptoms, I guess I should say. And there are symptoms that a lot of people don't even realize that are related directly to their trauma. Chronic fatigue syndrome is one. Any chronic illness is oftentimes attributed to, there could have been a traumatic event, or the person could have grown up with alcoholic parents or abusive parents or whatever, or they were abandoned or neglected. All of those things are traumatic to a child. So these can later on lead to these illnesses, fibromyalgia. Now, let me pause by saying I am not saying that fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome are caused by trauma. I am not a scientist, and I will not make that claim. However, in all of the reading and the research that I've been doing, all of the literature that I have read alludes to the fact that they think that there really is a connection there. So if you want to learn more about it, you can also read a great book. This was a huge game changer for me, and that book is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, and I'll put a link in the description box below. And also Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine. Oh, that man is genius. He's amazing. And then a little while later, I came across TRE by Dr. David Berceli, which we'll also talk about. Right, so there are a lot of illnesses and issues that can be attributed to early trauma. And because here's the other part, one of the side effects of having a damaged nervous system is that it actually lowers the immune system. So that's just something to keep in mind, okay? I also have a couple of videos that I made about regulating your nervous system, because even if you're not a trauma survivor, you can still benefit from regulating your nervous system, because it does help anyone who deals with stress or chronic stress. And it also helps people with chronic illness and all of that, because it helps to boost the immune system, or at least get it running efficiently and working the way it's supposed to be working. Because when your nervous system is out of balance, many of the systems of the body are off. And so regulating the nervous system is important, because the body needs to be in what we call homeostasis in order for it to be working efficiently. You can't be in homeostasis if your nervous system is out of balance. It just doesn't work that way. So there are a lot of things that we practice in the healing of trauma that are also beneficial for other people, or anyone suffering from chronic stress, for example. So what I'd like to do is share with you some of the things that I used to heal my trauma that gave me the most shift, I suppose, right? Or gave me the biggest shift and got me the best results. And some of these modalities actually gave me very fast results too. And one of the other effects of doing all of this was, once my brain started to work a little bit better and a little more efficiently, and it started coming back, then all of the things that I was learning in therapy, like a cognitive behavioral therapy, and also right now I'm doing DBT as well, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, all of those things started to sink in. They started to click. And I started to have a little more control over my mind. So for example, if I'm feeling really anxious, and let's say, for example, I have a thought that won't stop, and I know anybody who suffers from anxiety knows what this is about. You know, you've got these thoughts that just keep going around, and compulsive thinking, you know, and you can't let it go. Well, now that my nervous system is more regulated, when that kicks in, I have a way to fight it. I can actually stop it, and I can actually just pause and say to myself, is this useful? Are these thoughts useful? How is this helping me right now? I mean, that sounds really logical, right? And sometimes that's all that it takes. But if your brain isn't working, it's not going to be enough. So now that the brain is working, well, it's not 100%, it's better. Now that my brain is working better, and I can pause and say those things to myself, how is this useful? How is this helping you? Or I talk to that, the little voice in your head that tells you things like you're an idiot and stuff. We all do it, okay? Then I can stop and say, no, you know what? We're not going there. We're not having that conversation. And I can make it stop. And that's a miracle for me. It's a game changer, because it's allowing me to have just more space in my world, just for myself, and I can just take better care of myself. And I want to. I don't hate myself anymore. I did at one point. And it might be hard to believe, because I'm very cheery. Generally that's sort of my disposition. But man, I gotta tell you, if you ever talk to anyone who's been suicidal or who has struggled with suicidal ideation, it's not fun. It's a nightmare. And I'm just so grateful and blessed that I don't experience that now. Not to say I never will, but I hope I never do. So anyway, let me give you some of the modalities that I've been using. The first modality on my list is TRE. That is trauma and tension release exercises. Now for me, this is related a little bit to Peter Levine's work, although Peter Levine created what's called somatic experiencing, and that is a type of therapeutic process which enables a person to go back to their story and complete the cycle of the trauma. It can be a little bit difficult at first, but what happens is they can get away with it, now in the therapeutic space where they couldn't get away before, for example. So it's very liberating in that way. I don't know anyone who does it around here, and I couldn't really afford it. It's not cheap. So I went with TRE because TRE is using the tremor mechanism of the body to release the effects of the chronic stress. So what TRE does is it uses the psoas muscle, which is a huge muscle that goes from the spine all the way to the top of the thigh bone. And we have this mechanism in our bodies that still not a lot of people know about, which is why I make these videos, because I cannot stand that there are people out there suffering who just don't know. And you don't know what you don't know. So if you're watching this, now you know. So it's this muscle, and this is what's called the fight or flight muscle. So like if I'm going to take off and run, that's this muscle. It actually, it's the bridge between the upper half and the lower half of the body. So in TRE, there are some exercises that you do before you start, and then you get on your mat and you initiate this tremor mechanism. And the best way that I can describe the tremor mechanism is if you've ever seen animals in the wild where they, I'm going to use like an antelope. You know, we've all watched National Geographic videos and stuff, and you know, so an animal is getting chased by a lion and maybe they fall, or they, you know, their body goes into, there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Okay, so maybe they freeze and it looks like they're playing dead, but they're actually in a little bit of shock. And sometimes when that happens, you know, the lion might think that they're dead and leave, and then, I know you've seen this because we've all seen this, the animal will get up and shake from head to tail all the way through, and then boom, take off like nothing happened. Now animals have this and they can do it at will. In fact, even if you have a dog, I know you've seen your dog do this. If your dog has ever met another dog and there was maybe some kind of weird vibes, you know, and afterwards they, you know, they come apart and they both shake, they're shaking off the tension or the stress from that meeting. So we have this mechanism as well. It's just that a lot of people don't know. And why or how it happened that we grow up without that knowledge, I don't really fully understand. And I know Dr. Berselli has described it as, you know, it's sort of this part of our conditioning, you know, that we're told not to cry, or, you know, when we're little and we're shaking with fear, that's part of our tremor mechanism trying to release the stress. But sometimes we hold it ourselves because we don't want people to see us shaking. You know, there's a little bit of embarrassment or shame with that. So I want you to know that that's totally normal. Trembling and fear is a thing. The trembling is actually your body doing a good job of helping you release the stress. So don't stop it. You know, the trembling it's good. It's helping your body to release that charge of energy. So anyway, so TRE. For me, it was a game changer. I just got results so fast and I couldn't even believe it. I started to feel a little bit better right away. The suicidal ideation went away. I was doing a lot of things at once too, so it could have just been that I was doing a combination of things, because after I had my breakdown, I was out sick from work for a very long time. And I made it my full-time job to take care of myself. Now, I know that that's a lot of privilege. I know that not a lot of people have that privilege. But if you do, if you are, I hate to say lucky, no one is lucky for having trauma, but if you're lucky enough to be able to stay home for any reason, whether you're on disability or you're out of work or whatever, take advantage of the time and try some of these. I can't guarantee that any of them will work. All I can do is share them with you and hope that something will. But, you know, I also know that when you're a trauma survivor, sometimes people just don't even have the energy to try. And I know that. So I hope that this doesn't come across as, hey, I did it and so can you. I don't want to come across that way. I know everybody is different. But I can say, hey, I'm doing it and maybe you can. So here's the information. So that's where I'm coming from. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about is trauma-sensitive yoga. So unlike TRE, which, you know, TRE, like I said, releases some of the effects of the stress that's stuck in the psoas muscle. And also it does regulate the nervous system, and it also activates the vagus nerve, okay? Which regulates the nervous system, which is perfect. Trauma-sensitive yoga does not do that. However, what it does do is, well, it can regulate the nervous system, but also one of the effects of trauma is we tend to become disconnected with our bodies, and we tend to lose proprioception and interoception. So proprioception is the ability to sense your body in space, and interoception is the ability to feel things in your body. So sometimes you hear people say things like, oh, if you have this emotion come up, where do you feel it in your body? Well, myself and many other trauma survivors would say, I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean, where do I feel that in my body? I don't feel that in my body. So that was usually my response. Thankfully, it's not really my response anymore, but I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. I'm starting to feel little things in my body. But yeah, I had a really, really, really hard time doing that. So trauma-sensitive yoga can help you with that. For example, if I'm teaching trauma-sensitive yoga and I say, well, if you'd like, and in trauma-sensitive yoga we actually use invitational language because we want to give people a choice. Many trauma survivors grow up in an environment where they don't have a choice. And so that's the other benefit of it, is you learn how to make choices, you learn how to make decisions for yourself, and also you can start to get into your body, just to be in your body. So I might say something like, if it's okay with you, maybe try taking up your arm, and then maybe try taking it down. And by doing that, what I'm doing is I'm drawing your attention to just one part of your body so that you can focus on it, and maybe you can feel it. Maybe you can sense something in it. Maybe I'll say, let's rotate the shoulder. And maybe, just maybe, you might actually feel what's going on in there. And so it increases your interoception and your proprioception, which thereby increases the connection between the brain and the body. Trauma-sensitive yoga is really, really brilliant. And I'm talking about a specific kind of trauma-sensitive yoga. Nowadays, there are a lot of people calling their yoga trauma-sensitive yoga, but it's not evidence-based. The trauma-sensitive yoga that I'm talking about is evidence-based, and that's the type that I prefer to use. Because yoga, like anything else, can also be activating. So please, if you're going to try that, find a qualified teacher, not just somebody who says trauma informed or whatever, because that's a little bit different. But anyway, if you don't get activated by yoga, some people do. Some people just find it very unsettling, and some people don't. I was one of those lucky ones. I just jumped right into yoga, and I never really got dysregulated. The only thing I did do occasionally was cry in certain poses, and I didn't realize this at the time, but the crying was a release. It was a release of emotions and just whatever was stuck, So that was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But again, I'm lucky. I know that other people can get dysregulated, and that can be a little bit scary. So then the next thing I want to bring up is breath work, and specifically diaphragmatic breathing. Not all types of breath work are good for trauma survivors. In fact, some types of breath work can be triggering. And especially, depending on the type of abuse a person suffered, some types of breath work can be kind of scary. When I first started to do breath work, I wasn't really good with it. I was pretty uncomfortable with some of it. And it took me a while for my body to get accustomed to it and to feel safe. But diaphragmatic breathing is the one I would recommend, the number one type of breath work that I would recommend if you want to start breath work. And the reason why for me it's the number one is because it's very easy to do, and you can go at your own pace, and it literally regulates your nervous system in like 60 seconds. So it's fast. So even if you think you can only do it for a half a minute, by the time you get to that half a minute, you're already calm and you can keep going. So that's the beauty of diaphragmatic breathing. I would really encourage you to try that one out. And I actually do have a video on diaphragmatic breathing as well. And I also have a video, the one that I have with different ways to regulate your nervous system. I have diaphragmatic breathing in one of those videos as well. So breath work. And in yoga, we call that pranayama. And take it slow with breath work. Like I said, it can be a little unsettling for some people. The other one is meditation, and I'm going to say the same thing about meditation that I just said about breath work. Not all types of meditation are encouraged for trauma survivors. In fact, some types of meditation are contraindicated. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Vipassana meditation is contraindicated because it can bring up too many things, and it's just leaves people feeling unsafe, and it can be triggering and dysregulating. So that one in particular, I know I've read studies that it can have negative effects. It doesn't mean it will, it just means that it can. A simple type of meditation that I would recommend is one where you simply narrate your breathing. So for example, you're just closing your eyes. Also, as a trauma survivor, you don't have to close your eyes because I know that makes people feel unsafe. You can look down if you want. That way your eyes are still open, but you're just not getting distracted by stuff. So if you want to try this meditation, it's really just sitting down, breathing, and then simply narrating your breath. So in your head, you would think, inhale as you're inhaling, exhale, inhale, exhale. So by using the words and labeling what's happening, it takes your mind off of any distracting thoughts, and it brings you into a state of calm. So that type of meditation is lovely and very effective. And another type of meditation I would recommend would be guided meditations, because when you're listening to someone else and you're focusing on their words, that can sometimes help if your mind is kind of scattered and all over the place, okay? So those are the types I would recommend. Actually, mantra meditation I think would be really good too. Mantra meditation is similar to what I said earlier about narrating your breath, inhale, exhale. Oh, and as an aside, you don't have to use inhale, exhale. You can say whatever you want. Peanut butter, jelly, I don't know. Whatever floats your boat and whatever makes you happy and is something you can focus on. But mantra meditation is similar in that you choose a word or a phrase and you simply repeat that over and over and over again. And it can be anything, you know. I am queen of the universe. I am queen of the universe. I know that's silly, but it's an example. So maybe explore different types of meditation. And similar to meditation, another modality that I used was hypnosis. I mean, all hypnosis, I was going to say self-hypnosis, but all hypnosis is self-hypnosis because you're giving yourself permission to do it. And the hypnosis that I liked the most, that worked well for me, is actually available on YouTube, and it's Paul McKenna, and he is an English hypnotherapist, and he has this one, I mean, the titles of his videos or his meditations aren't my favorite, and I think the one that I used the most is How to Change Your Life in 7 Days or something. That was the book anyway, and so it's kind of, I feel like I can't help but think he would get more people interested if maybe he changed the titles. I don't know. But anyway, this one particular hypnosis just was amazing. I would just put on my headphones, and for a while I did that one every day or every other day, and that definitely helped a lot. And you can also maybe even see a hypnotherapist if it's in your budget. But if you can't, there are tons of recordings and a lot of free stuff on YouTube that you can utilize and have access to. Same with guided meditations. Oh, I should recommend a guided meditation too. Kelly Howell, or her company is called Brain Sync, and she has a beautiful healing meditation. And that was one that I was also listening to a lot. And again, this is the reason I made so much progress, was for a while I was doing a guided meditation every day, a hypnosis every day, TRE every day. Some people can't handle TRE every day. That was just, what I did. Yoga almost every day, and and I think I said meditation, maybe. Yeah, I did. So I did all of that stuff every day, and other types of nervous system regulation as well, which leads me to the last bit, which is nervous system regulation activities. Now, there are many, many different activities to regulate your nervous system, and they're all very easy to do. The only one that I think is hard to do is the Wim Hof method, which is basically to jump in a freezing cold body of water. No, thank you. Now, here's the short version. You could literally stand over your sink, blast the cold water, or put ice in the sink with water and splash your face with the cold water for a minute or two, and it will have the same effect. So no need to suffer, no need to be jumping into frozen lakes. Just splash your face with cold water. But anyway, there are a lot of other types of activities for nervous system regulation. And just off the top of my head, singing, chanting, humming, loud belly laughing, just to bring your awareness to it, the diaphragm area has a lot of nerve bundles, and so that activates the vagus nerve, which is why chanting, singing, humming, all of that, and also diaphragmatic breathing. Anything where the exhale is longer than the inhale. Also gargling, which sounds strange, but yeah. Also, let's see, laying on the right side of the body, and doing a nervous system reset where you tap. You do like a tap, and then the other side. I have all these in videos. I actually already posted 2 videos, and I will be posting a 3rd video. And I think I came up with about 20 off the top of my head. The beauty of that is you get to pick. Just pick the ones you like. And to really make it effective, you want to do these things like, 5 times a day, every day. Before you freak out and you're like, how am I going to do this stuff 5 times a day? It only takes a minute or 2. Like, you're literally giving yourself 2 minutes at a time, 5 times a day. That is 10 minutes out of your day. And I always hear excuses, like my niece keeps saying things like, oh, my brother keeps bugging me. And I said, well, why don't you just go in the bathroom? Lock yourself in the bathroom for 2 minutes. So there's a way. There's always a way. Everybody can lock themselves in the bathroom for 2 minutes. I think. I hope. Is that asking too much? I don't think it's asking too much. It's only a couple of minutes. 5 times a day. Which brings me to this. Now I have a challenge for you. Oh, by the way, I should add journaling. I didn't do journaling. I know the video is about the ways I heal my trauma, but I have a good friend who journals a lot, and that's been very helpful for her. And also there's another YouTuber, the Crappy Childhood Fairy. Oh my God, I love her. She is such a lovely woman, and she has so much incredibly helpful information. And I love listening to her, and she has a very soothing voice, so I actually love watching her videos. So check her out if you haven't heard of her yet. I hope you have. So yeah, journaling is another one. So anyway, here is my challenge for you. My challenge is, can you do these for a week? Can you choose from this list and do things every day, 5 times a day, for 1 week? Can you do that for yourself? If you do, it would be a really interesting experiment to see how you feel after a week. And it might actually be helpful to journal this experience as well, just to kind of jot down some notes about maybe even how you feel before or after the activity. But just generally, even if you don't write it down, just do this for a week and see how you feel. And please let me know in the comments. I really, really want to know. I have so many other things that I can be doing with my time, but I'm doing this because I want to help. And I'm doing this because it helped me, and I feel like I have to get the word out. It's like a compulsion. I have to, because I can't stand the idea that other people are suffering when they don't have to be, because we have this information now. We didn't have it before. And anybody over the age of like 30 or 40 wouldn't even know that this stuff is available, because when we first found out about our traumas, how many years ago, that stuff wasn't available. So there it is. These are the main modalities that I use personally in my own trauma healing. And now that like I said, my brain is working better, and I also said I did therapy way before, but then I started again. But I also go to therapy regularly, and I'm also in a separate group therapy as well, where we learn about dialectical behavioral techniques and stuff. So if you can get yourself in a group, that would be amazing. And I didn't think I would like being in a group, but it's not a support group. We don't just sit around and talk about our history. We actually talk about real life practical skills and things that we can do every day to manage our symptoms. So I highly recommend something like that. I don't think support groups are a good idea. My personal opinion, you're welcome to disagree. The only reason I don't think support groups are a good idea is because you don't have to relive your trauma to heal. You don't have to talk about your trauma in order to heal. In fact, talking about your trauma and reliving your trauma is literally going to dysregulate you. So you don't have to. You can do all of these modalities without ever saying a word, without talking about it. So try it and let me know what happens. I really want to know. Please let me know. Okay, I'm stopping now. I have no idea how long this video ended up being. I am a chatty person, so I apologize if it got to be long-winded. But I thank you for joining me, and I thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You got through one of my spiels. And I really wish you the best, and I really wish you nothing but light and love and happiness. We all deserve happiness. We're all worth it. It's the least that we deserve, okay? So thanks again. If you liked the video, if you found it helpful, I've heard that, clicking the like button helps the video get seen more. So if you want other people to see the video, I guess, then, hit the like button. And if you want to see more videos, or you want to join me and maybe take some of my yoga classes, I have a lot of free classes on my YouTube channel. Subscribe, and then you'll get, new videos every week. And then I believe the notification thing also tells you. I don't know about the notification bell. Like, that's up to you. I personally I don't want a notification bell on mine, so I'm going to leave that up to you. But yeah, thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon, and I wish you the best. And I will end this on my favorite meditation, which is called Metta Meditation. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, and may you be free from suffering. Namaste.